All right. And everybody, I'm here with SJ Childs, and she's actually a podcaster as well. And today we are doing Successfully Chaotic live behind the scenes. I'm in my office. I'm not in my studio. I do that sometimes anyway, but right now we're actually moving the studio around. So you're going to probably see me in here for just a hot minute. But I'm going to let SJ jump in and tell everybody who is viewing and later on the podcast listening just a little bit about who she is and what she does.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me here, Maria. I'm so excited to connect. Luckily, I have the opportunity to have you on my podcast as well, the SJ Child Show. And the SJ Child Show came about because about 2 years ago, I published 7 children's books, and they are based around special needs. It's a great way to be able to teach your children about special needs in a great collection of books. And through that, building that brand, I was going on podcasts and promoting the books, and just got the enthusiasm to start my own show. So I did that. And on my show, we do the same. We interview my show, I basically say education and resources for families. So that's what we do on the SJ Child Show. And and here I am today.
I love it. And honestly, we've talked a few times kind of, offline, and I love your personality. I love your spunk, and you're an autism mom like I am.
Yes.
And I always tell people that when you have a special needs kid, you become the member of this club that you never really knew that you were ever going to be a member of. But at the same time, it's like it becomes your safe zone, your soft spot. And because nobody really can understand. I mean, they can sympathize with the hard days and they can triumph on the win days with you, but only the other special needs, parents who are walking the journey can really, truly, just like anything else, can really, truly understand. And I know you probably feel the same way that I do, that any other special needs mom, it's like an instant bond. It's like we've been friends forever at that point.
Yes. We can completely, no, it's true. You can completely get each other. There's no judgment. There's patience, grace, and flexibility. And you don't get that out in the world with every other relationship. And so, it is like, and that's funny you said that, because I just did a podcast with a guy in the UK this morning, and I said the exact same thing. I probably got it from you, is that, it's like this special club that you're a part of, and that you really have a family and a support system. I have a son that was diagnosed when he was 16 months old. He's now 11. A daughter who is 9 who has dyslexia and will be getting her diagnosis this next fall, but I'm certain of it now. And a 21-year-old also who is possibly seeking out getting her own diagnosis, spending years and years going through therapy with her and never finding out any answers, if you will. And now we kind of recognize that that's probably why, is because autism wasn't as, present then in people's minds and in therapists' minds back then, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And now about 5 years ago, during all of some of these testings and things like that, I recognized that my husband was certainly on the spectrum. So I have the house full of autism, which I celebrate and love, and have the opportunity to have a unique perspective to show the world how unique and special. Autism is a different way of thinking. Mm-hmm. It is not a bad behavior, as some, old adages or things thinking maybe. It's a beautiful way of thinking. And the more we as a humanity are flexible with one another and open-minded to everyone's type of thinking, that's where the better world begins.
No, I agree with you. And I know for me, I like to explain to people that it's almost like a language barrier. It's like they speak a different language. Yeah. It's not a worse language or a better language, or it's just a different language. And I actually had one of my sons, he's 12 now, but one of my son's doctors tell me that a long time ago. And, early on, my son was younger when he was diagnosed, even though I kind of knew a little bit before his diagnosis that there was something different. But, you're wanting all the answers. It was like I read everything and studied everything and got different certifications and different things to try to just piece everything together. And, for the longest time, I was struggling to really grasp. And the one doctor, he was one that said it to me. He said, they speak a different language. And that's what made it click for me. Just boom. Because it was like, okay, I understand that, because a lot of times they're upset because they don't understand our language. They're upset because they're speaking their language. They're trying to say what they need to say in their language to us, and we don't speak their language. So for the longest time, when these kids are younger, especially, there's more outbursts, more tantrums because they're so frustrated. Why don't you just understand me?
Yeah.
And we're upset and frustrated because we don't understand and we want to help. Yeah, exactly. So I just love that. And I love that you have these books available to help children and help families. And honestly, I didn't even realize you had them. Like, I met you as a podcaster before I knew that you were an author. And I love that. I have, it's actually at the Artist right now, but I have a children's book that I wrote a long time ago. I never thought it would be something I would publish. It's funny how sometimes that happens. I wrote it. It was almost therapeutic for me to write it. And somebody's like, you should publish it. And then I got permission from my son to use his real name in it. Long story. But so whenever I found out you had books, I was like, oh, that gives me something else I want to talk to you about, because, that was something that I never thought that I would do until somebody's like, you need to just do it. And I was like, okay. But it's like anytime you start something new, you're like, but can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you just to write those books?
Absolutely. And it's so funny you said that too, because I wrote the books 8 years ago. I mean, years and years ago. My 9-year-old, I guess, so maybe it was 7 years ago. She was 2. I have a physical difference, and so do my 2 biological children, called outer ear microtia. I'll just give everybody an idea of what that means. I have these little teeny tiny ears, as you can see, and I can hear perfectly fine. It's just an outer ear, kind of a deformity, if you will. But when
just a difference, it's just a difference.
Right. And so when my kids were, when I was growing up, I had a lot of bullying going on and name calling, and it was, I was pregnant with my second child, and I was like 30, 34 or something. And someone said to me, "Oh, hey, little ears." And I just cringed inside and thought, no, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm a grown woman. You can address me by my name that everyone knows. It's crazy. So I realized this is going to be difficult. Like, how do I give my daughter, my son, he, like you said, has a different language. He has a different way of speaking and understanding the world in a way that he doesn't have judgment or fear, which is not good sometimes. But that non-judgment piece is a beautiful thing, because he can walk around the world not judging others, but more importantly, not judging himself. Which, I mean, it wouldn't we all give that to have that? But my daughter, on the other hand, is much more social. And for her, it was really important that I tried to instill this sense of confidence that having little ears, having a physical difference, makes you different, yes, but just as unique and special as everyone else. We're all different.
Absolutely.
And so that's where it started. And, like you said, I was going to go down to Walgreens and publish it. And somebody said, no, this is great. This is a really great message. And I realized off of that, wow, I can really pivot off of this and tackle all of the subjects that are dear in my home and in my heart, which are autism, dyslexia. My husband also has dyslexia, so I've been familiar with it, through him for quite some time. And then to find out my daughter also has dyslexia, really gave me a sense of how to help kids identify if they might have dyslexia. I wrote a book about Down syndrome because I have a dear friend with a son who is now 21 also, but watching him go throughout his life and having been bullied or, just picked on and struggle once in a while. But in the end, just so resilient and so loving. Like, the kid just wants to hug and high five. And all he gives is love to the world. And I wanted to celebrate that and share that with kids. And a special thing about the books is that in the back of each of them, they're all poetic and in a rhyming way, because rhyming is easy for kids to learn how to read. It helps them with that pattern recognition and memory. And it's also fun, of course. And it was really great to be able to give them a sense of these are what these children may be like that are your friends. This is how you can support them.
Yeah.
And in the back of the book, there's a question and answer forum so that the teachers and the parents, they can get the real information to the kids. This is the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum.
Yeah.
You and I know 100% what that looks like.
Yeah.
This is what a chromosome is. Why does that matter? Because it makes up our DNA. And, so I kind of joke, you can get a science lesson from the books. And then there's there's two really special ones that one about anxiety, which is something I dealt with my whole life and since I was a child, and ways to cope and ways to understand it physiologically, because children don't understand when they have a tight chest and guilty or anything in their stomach and their stomach's upset. They don't understand how to process those emotions or how to identify them. So with this type of knowledge, it turns fear into understanding. And it's so valuable for kids. The last one was so special because my daughter is a really great illustrator. And I thought, what a better way to empower and encourage her in her talents than to let her publish her own book. So
I love that.
we created an ABC book, and she did all the illustrations, and we published it for her. So now she can take that into her life and into her future. And what a huge accomplishment for a child. So
Absolutely. I love that. And I think, most people in general, just curious. And sometimes, especially if you can teach a child at a young age about the different things that they may be curious about another person, it makes it not so different, right? Even though, like you said, we all have differences are beautiful. But at the same time, if a child has a question about something and it's answered in such a way to explain why that's amazing at a young age, that just follows them on into adulthood. Because, I think a lot of these adults that still don't understand and that can come across as, crude and mean and judgmental on things, I think honestly, a part of it is because they truly do not understand.
Yeah. Which causes a little fear because that leaks you out of control feeling and that, I don't know how to address this situation. Or, I've spoken to so many people, both disabled and intellectually disabled, if you will. And, in just speaking to, like a gentleman with cerebral palsy that I am friends with, he says, yeah, it's okay. It's okay that kids come up to me in the grocery store and ask me about my crutches or ask me about my wheelchair. And that's okay with me. What's not okay is when kids look and they ask the parents and then the parents shush them up and I appreciate the fact that he would be willing to take that moment for child to learn a lesson because they're innocent. They don't know. They don't mean any harm or any bad intent by wanting to find out more. And I think that their adults so often cringe at the thought of asking another adult about their handicap in any way. And I think that should be just thrown out the window. The more communication we have with one another, the better a society we can be with one another. Right?
Absolutely. No. And I think a lot of these adults that do that, and I'm thinking even about my own family, my grandma definitely was that person.
Oh, I have family members.
She was definitely that person. No, we don't say that. And I understand her why behind it. She didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Yeah. But I so agree with you that curiosity is innate in us. Yeah. I mean, we are born curious creatures. That's how we learn. We learn by being curious about our environments, about everything. Yeah. And, I embrace that curiosity. I love the idea that your books are identifying a lot of these questions that kids and honestly probably some adults still have because they don't really know. And, I know for me personally, the negative experiences that I've had while out with my son have primarily been from adults,
Absolutely. So isn't that the hardest part too? Yeah. I mean, I honestly can say, and I won't say any names, but
Yeah.
there was a time, just the worst incident popped in my head. There was a time where my son loved going to school when he was in preschool and kindergarten, just loved it. Like I couldn't take him away from school. He'd cry every day we'd leave school. He'd cry. He loved school. He had so much support. And one time, he just fell in the middle of the crosswalk and was just inconsolable. And I was, had a toddler, and I'm just trying to manage, both children at once, as you can completely get, which is not even close to your trade. But yeah, it's amazing. And this woman crossed the crosswalk and just scowled at me in the most horrific scowl. And it broke my heart in that moment. And I went to my car and I just cried and cried and cried. And we've all special needs moms have had that moment, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Come to find out, she's the special needs nurse at my son's school. What? Like disgusting, despicable. I couldn't believe it. He didn't stay in school much longer after that. Once we got into first grade, his academic levels are high above where he's at and is at his biological age.
Yeah.
And so they wouldn't accommodate us. They said, sorry, we don't have teachers that can accommodate his levels of academics, and good luck. So we are on our own, and we're at home and we're homeschooling. This will be year 6 that we've been homeschooling. And it's difficult. It's, I had to give up careers and other things to stay home, which I'm so lucky that now I've reinvented myself, if you will, with my books and my podcast in the last year and a half. And I've really found a whole new meaning, which I love. And like you said, I love how you said we're all curious. And I love to, we all live in wonder. And the more wonder in our lives that we celebrate and that we pursue, the better our life can be. It's when we hold on to those, nightmares or past things that are in the past, and we drag them forward with us, that we don't get to experience new growth, new opportunities, things like that.
No.
So,
No, I agree 100%. And, the things that went on in our past in our lives, whether that, if they were horrible, especially, yes, we may have learned a lesson from them. We may, use that as a catalyst to our next, journey, but dragging that through, I've seen so many people drag it on and drag it through and use that as an excuse for this and that, and why they can't do this or that. And, being able to put those kind of things behind you, I think is huge. And being able to focus, like you said, on the awe and the wonder of life. I mean, life is one of those things. I mean, it can be hard. And trust me, I am not always that person. Like, I don't believe in toxic positivity either. I do think there's both sides. If today sucks, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's just wonderful with rainbows, because today just freaking sucks. Yeah. I want to say it sucks. I don't want you to, spray me with glitter. Leave me alone. Let me feel that today sucks. But I also know for myself, I can't stay there. I can feel that moment and be like, you know what, today is just one of those days. That's fine. I'm taking a day off. I'm going to have my moment, feel my feelings, because I think that's so important to learn. Even again, as an adult, it took me to get to adulthood for me to figure out that it was okay for me to feel my feelings. But, to be able to do that and still say, you know what, but life is still amazing and life is still wonderful. And what makes it so wonderful is really the differences, the ups, the downs. As much as we can be like, oh, it'd be amazing if my life was just like always happy and always great and always whatever, but it would kind of be boring. If there was no ups and downs.
Yeah, definitely. You find your growth and your opportunities when you hit rock bottom, and you have to crawl back out and you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And especially as a special needs mom, like, I think I've gone through just rebirth after rebirth after rebirth of who I am, of how I'm going to approach the world, of what my situation's going to be. But then again, there's no room to lay down and die. There's no room to let things walk all over me. Like, I need to keep moving. And I think there were times, when back to kind of the school thing, when my son did get into first grade, he was at a new school, not the one that he loved. And they didn't treat him the same. He didn't have the same support. And at 6 years old, he left the school at lunchtime and nobody knew. And an adult found him out on the road, and they brought him back to the school. And the school had the audacity to blame him and to tell me he had been bad by leaving, this nonverbal child is just atrocious behaviors. And ever since that day, I don't give I don't give them second chances to lose my child, definitely. And there was a bit of depression, I would say, for the next maybe year or so. Just that, like, how could I not be getting help? Like, how could they turn their back on me like this? And just this, I don't know, disappointment in my community around me. And so I really think that luckily I was able to kind of dig my heels in and find strength through that, and realize, okay, I've, been in sweatpants and a ponytail for far too long. It's time to put a dress on and do your makeup and hair once in a while. And it's amazing the growth and the new love for myself that it's developed. If you would have told me in December that, and I was doing podcasts and things, but that I would literally be recording myself, I would have said, no way, no way, no way, no way. And it has turned into such a therapeutic, amazing opportunity. And think of all the people, like, how would you ever have met otherwise? Maybe in a community like, autism convention or something, possibly. Yeah. But otherwise, it's so great to be able to make these connections with like-minded family.
Absolutely. Yeah. And no, I mean, I 100% agree. And I feel the same way about podcasting. I was a speaker, not a podcaster. I always joke around. I'm like, I'm great with tech as long as it's the programs I know how to use. You add in cords and wires, I am out. I do not do my own sound. I don't even want to learn, and when I was told to start my own podcast, I was just kind of like, all right. I mean, I love a new project. I am like a sucker for a new project. But at the same time, it was just kind of like, it was so overwhelming because it was not in my wheelhouse. It's still like, I always consider myself an accidental podcaster. I've dubbed it. It's in some of my stuff, accidental podcaster, because I am. Yeah. And, but at the same time, it's been one of the best ways for me to meet people. It's been one of the best ways honestly, for my own personal growth. Before I'd started my podcast, I had decided that I really wanted to step out of this idea that to own a business, you had to, be like this, or don't say that, or don't do this, or you better wear that. I got so tired of all the rules around it. And, the rest of my life, I felt like I didn't have control over. Yeah. So I needed like something that was just mine. Right. Yeah. And I was having such a hard time with it that podcasting was kind of that outlet of me to be able to be like, you know what? Well, this is who I am, and I'm making this okay, and this is why. So it was my therapy, and I mean, I agree with you so much, and I think there's so many people who feel like they don't have a voice because of, for whatever reason within their own life, that podcasting has become that outlet and that avenue for them to have a voice. And it doesn't matter if your listens are 1 or, 1 million. I don't, whatever. Exactly. It's still the idea that you're out there and you're talking with purpose, and that your voice is out there. And, I know I see in a lot of the podcasting groups, and I know you're probably in a lot of them too, that people are so hung up on the numbers and the growth and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm in marketing and I do understand the analytics, and I know the reasons why they care about the analytics, but I'll be honest, for me, I don't even know. And I don't care. My people do that do all the editing stuff. I don't know. And I don't care. Which sounds like people say stuff to me. They're like, but you're in marketing. I'm like, I know that's not what I'm doing. I do my podcast for me. It's mine. Yeah. I do it for me. And I love that you've got that same mentality. And a lot of people do. A lot of people I talk to on the podcast, it's like, I do this, and this. And the podcast, it's mine.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love it. And it's definitely been a way for me I love how you said, speak your voice. So I have a little story to tell about that. In last September, I'm here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and this is kind of a cringy subject, unfortunately. But last September, we had a shooting in our community, and it was a 13-year-old with autism. And he was, 92 pounds, dripping wet in the middle of the street, and could have been taken down by one football player, rather than a, bunch of bullets from a non-understanding police force. And unfortunately, that occurred. And us as parents, as special needs parents with an 11-year-old boy who is much more severe, if you will, on the spectrum, of course, we were freaked out. My heart was racing. And I literally said to my husband, I need a louder voice. Like, this isn't okay. I need a louder voice. And it was very soon thereafter. I started in maybe February of the next year. It did take some time getting things said, but it also encouraged me to start a Facebook group, which you're also a part of. And I'd love to invite any autism families, called Autism Advocate Support Group. And it's a wonderful group. I really love it. I love it because I find everyone is so supportive. Everyone, supports one another. Yes, everybody has bad days, and I post positive quotes all the time, but at the same time, nobody badmouths anybody. Nobody's ever it's never been controversy. It's my favorite place to be. And I just absolutely love it. So everyone is, of course, welcome to join that. And through that, our initial idea was to start community groups that we could call on one another in crisis, so that we could use each other as a support system and not rely on untrained professionals to come deal with our child that they didn't know how to deal with. And it's grown and morphed into other things, and more of like a real support system and group now rather than that. But our idea and our initial idea of it still stands. Like, we still built this community, and through that,
I love that.
It's just been incredible. And I have right here these great things, and you probably saw this.
I did. Yes.
Yeah. Vehicle safety kits, because you don't know when you're going to have an emergency.
No.
If this is a profile that you fill out for your child with special needs, and then on the back of it is like communication board, so that you can, if the police officers or emergency responders don't understand how to communicate with your child, they can have a little bit of a way to try. There's fidget toys in them for the kids, and masks, and also earplugs, and business cards from some people around.
So I do have a question. I am in that group. I thought this is the first time that I realized that your purpose behind it was to do these community groups, which actually my heart's beating. Like, I'm super excited.
I love it.
I would love to find out. You'll probably want to tell me more about. I would love to find out more about that, because I know it's much needed. And I've personally talked with EMTs and stuff around, but to have something that, be able to come together and have the materials that are printed that are saying the same thing, and it's going to all the police departments and all the EMTs and all the, the fire departments and all the, all the places that would have the same message, the same voice. That way it's kind of not all over the place, I think is ideal. And that has me excied. I'm not going to lie, because that's always been like a fear of mine of, as when you have any kid really, but it's especially a special needs kid, that it's like, what would happen if, and, what would happen, if I'm not there, and, obviously he's 12 right now. And I can remember there was an incident, and this has been 4 years ago, with an older man in his 40s that was autistic, at sadly a local church. I'm not going to mention any names, but they're listening. They know my feelings on all this already. So that it escalated before I found out about it, escalated to the point that he had made some comments that someone mistakenly took as a threat, which I knew wasn't a threat. It was his way of vocalizing he was unhappy with a situation, but they took it as a threat, got police involved, had decided to kick him off of the church property, just all these things that had happened before I found out about it. And then I'm trying to undo all the wrongs. And, these people that were involved in this, they're actually very good people, just uneducated on autism. And, that was my thing that I felt like I was screaming and shouting from the rooftops, was that, my child at the time was 8. I'm like, my 8-year-old says things all the time that you don't feel threatened because he's 8, but he's going to be 48. And then what? So, that is always in the back of my mind, my husband's mind, is all of these normal parenting fears that we have. Then in addition to, these extra things that special needs parents need to think about. So I love the idea of community groups, and in any way that I can help with that, please let me know. Where can somebody find out about if they want to, be a part of the community group. And then about the kits that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to Autism Advocates Support Group, it's pinned at the very top of the page. And we had a lot of donations. We had a fundraiser, had donations, put the kits together. Me and my husband put them together ourselves. And we are mailing them. It was like to 100 families that we've made 100 of them up, and we're giving them out to 100 families. And so I want to say that there's maybe 30 families on the list at this time. So there's still so many left over. And
Is it something that could be purchased though? Is it something that
I mean, I was literally just giving them away for free, but of course I should make it some type
that's what I was wondering.
Oh,
and again, we could probably talk about that offline, but maybe obviously you pre-launch it out with the 100, and after that, it's not so unheard of if you could figure out what your cost associated is, and say, hey, the local fire department or whoever purchases X amount of them to be able to hand out. I think that would be ideal.
And it's so nice. Just in fact, just the other day, it was for something super unrelated. It was a dog napping that turned out to be the lady thought she was saving the dogs, brought them back. Yada, yada.
No.
But the cops did come because I witnessed the whole thing. And so he and I were sitting there talking, and I gave him one of these kits and said, here. And the same thing. He was just like, wow, yes. Oh my gosh. No, what do I do with it? What do I do with it? And so it was very apparent that he wanted to learn. He wants to know how to help, but he just isn't getting the proper training. So it's definitely needed. And, kind of like you said, these people are good people that just have a lack of education. It's just like we are good people, even though we don't know how to do brain surgery. Doctors, would, yes, definitely say we shouldn't operate on brains, but not that we're not good people. So
no, absolutely. And I think being able to give them the tools that they need, and what better people to teach is the parents that are dealing with it every day.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter what degree you go and get in autism. It's not going to be the same as living it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's beautiful, amazing parts to it. And honestly, I say this all the time, that my son has made me a better person, like a better person. But there are the days where, it's hard, and you worry, and, you worry about the future, and you worry about the past, and you worry about all the things. There's just all the worry.
Definitely.
And, the idea that you could give tools to somebody else that could help another child or another family, I think that is, something that's empowering.
Yeah.
Even on the days that we feel not very empowered.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I just me as a person, I think it's kind of like my life's purpose. I love to connect people with resources. I love it. And it's my passion, and I want to help families. I want them to call on me if they need me. I want SJ Childs to be a household name that you can trust, that you can go to for getting the right information, community resources, education on all types of different special needs, as well as we have other types of, we have a corporate training program that we just laid out, where I did a really great presentation called the 5.5 Steps of Autism. And I put the 5.5 steps because, there's not a proper, it doesn't ever go in full steps, of course.
Yeah,
and
I love
it. Yeah. And it really broke down like 0 through 5 and what you need to focus on if you're a new parent with a new diagnosis in those early years, because obviously not everybody's going to get their diagnosis in that time frame. But we really wanted to just do an introduction of how we could help train employees, and just kind of hoping to improve that and work into how to help adults in the workforce, and how to do training with them as well. So lots of great things coming
I love
up.
that. I absolutely love that. So can you tell everyone, first of all, you've mentioned the group, tell everybody where they can find your books, tell everybody where they can find your podcast, and all the things.
Absolutely. sjchilds.org. As simple as that. sjchilds.org. You can buy the books online. If you buy the collection, there is a coupon that you can get for the whole collection, which everyone wants to save money. They are available on Amazon, on all the online bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart, such and such. But again, you can't get the coupon, so go to my website. And then, of
Absolutely.
course, you can also find the podcast. You can find us on all the podcast platforms and on YouTube. And you can find those links on my website as well. You can find me as a guest on other shows. So a whole bunch of information and a lot of resources and education to go along to help families all around the world.
Love it. I
Thank
absolutely love
you.
it. And make sure that you go check out sjchild.org. Go ahead and get all the books. You know you want the coupon. And check out the podcast. We'll make sure that we pop the links to all these things into the show notes when the podcast airs. And in the meantime, you can look up SJ Childs on Facebook and make sure and follow the Autism Advocates group and find out about all the community resources that there are available. And thank you so much for being on today. It's been
such a pleasure.
amazing. I always have a blast talking to you.
Me too. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. We'll have to do this again sometime soon. I feel like
Love
I could just talk to you like all day, but then my editing people are like, you talk too much.
Right? Make those episodes shorter. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So we will be back again with, I don't know if our show next week is live or pre-recorded. I guess you'll find out. Sadly, my team knows most of the time more than me, but we'll be back again next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time.